Barakata Yahweh, Barakata Yahweh Shai, Barakata Yahweh, Barakata Yahweh Shai, Barakata Yahweh, Barashim Yahweh Shai, Barashim Makakadash, double honors and salutations to the elders and apostles of Great Millstone who rule well, to the Akim Akrat, try the four corners of the earth, holding on in sincerity and in truth and diligence of mind to the gospel of Lord Amashak Yahweh Shai, days in camp. In these days and times, it's Nasha DC Cab shot lesson for the whole full elect. Yeah, I just gotta calm down my spirit. Yeah, because of when certain aspects of your journeys in this ministry causes you to become angry, you know, angry in the spirit, due to the lies and deceptions among our people, that claim to be Israelites is just it's just mind numbing. It's very, very irritating. Even brothers, just wonder how can such lies continue, over and over and over. You just ask yourself, for how long, will you continue to be the, professional cleanup crew member in this ministry, man? Because no matter how much you clean up, man, the mess is always still gotta come back because it's a certain group of individuals, man, that claim to be Israelites that refuse to tidy up, man. They're just making a mess, you know, deliberately, against the truths of this gospel, and you just have to wonder, why does it have to be this way? Why does it have to be so frustrating? When it comes to preaching the gospel, of truth. The gospel of Lord Amashak Yahweh in truth and sincerity. You just wonder, what really happens. What really causes people to stick to that lie, no matter how, no matter how cornered, they've been found out. They just maintain that narrative, lies and lies and lies and lies and lies. Despite all the truth coming out, they still maintain that position of telling a lie. And, the closer we get, to certain events and prophecy, they pretend as if, that they didn't come up with that narrative, to deviate from the truth. And that's a problem, that a lot of our people have to acknowledge. And the Lord is not going to let that, you know, that habit go unanswered. That's the issue. When you keep mentioning IUIC, ICGJC, and all the other miscreants that refuse to honor the word of the Lord, you just, you shake your head, in sadness and anger and frustration. So the book of Sirach chapter 4 verse 25 says, "In no wise speak against the truth, but be abashed of the error of thine ignorance." It's nothing glorious about spreading falsehoods about the gospel, spreading the lies and treachery against the gospel of the Lord Amashak Yahushai. It's just so hard, for some of our people, man, that claim to be Israelites to accept the truth from Hamashiach Yahushai. it's like any opportunity they get, they always like to take shots, man. Slandering. You just wonder, what's so bad about speaking the truth? You know, did anybody lose their life? Or have a bad episode that they regret for speaking the truth of the Lord Amashaki Awashai? What's the problem? At the end of the day, you just realize that someone must have been compromised somewhere, you know, and there's proof of it, and they have to continue to maintain that lie. You know, it's just like these politicians, man, all these so-called elites. When they've been found out, they have to create a distraction, and that's the habit we see among those that claim, they want to serve the Lord the Mashiach Yahushai, but they do not want to honor His name. They keep on deflecting. They keep on perverting the gospel, and then you realize, what, the Lord Hamashiach Yahushua will deal with it when the time is right, because it's beyond our control, man. All we can do is just admonish. You reject them, and then you just keep them admonishing. It's like in this ministry, you sound like a broken record. Repeating the verses, the chorus of the song over and over and over and over and over, man. So it's just that certain things, man, will always be addressed again and again and again and again. No matter how much the truth is being exposed to the whole world, some individuals will always want to hold on to that lie as if the lie is their lifeline out of Babylon. It's just a sad state of mind that our people have to abolish. It's horrible. It's a horrible experience, and it's just how it is. And then verse 26: Be not ashamed to confess thy sins, and force not the cause of the river. And that is clear as daylight, man. There's no shame in that, in admitting, the wrong you've done, and that's about it. Meddle no more with the iniquities of thy past, and this truth is moving on, man. You're trying to come against it. It's basically spiritual suicide, and that's what we see. The adversaries of this gospel, going going towards, man. They're basically digging their own pits. They're digging their own pits, and how the Lord Hamashiach mentioned, the blind leading the blind, they'll both fall into the pit. But in this case, man, somebody that's deliberately leading the people down the path of lies, that's worse than being blind, man. That's derangement. That's madness. That's spiritual madness. That needs to be purged. That's a spirit of deception that has to be eliminated from our people, man. Because being blind is a different idea. But when someone knows the truth, but still pretend that they never, heard the truth, and they want to maintain that lie, and they want to come against the truth, it shows you there's a disconnect. That's a bias they want to hold on to, and they're maintaining, they're maintaining that habit, that facade before the congregation, because you know how it is, man. You know, when someone is prospering in a lie, they would rather hold on to it than roll with the truth, you know, than walk in the path of truth. Yeah, because the Lord is going to have to make a type of spiritual introduction, you know, divine intervention, you know, and it's going to be rough. You know, it's going to be rough for those that are found wanting. You know, that's the whole idea. That's the whole idea. You know, so I'm not going to make this lesson long. I'll try my best to keep it as short as possible. So, in the book of Jeremiah, let's see, chapter 9. Let's see. Uh, I mean, the first 8 verses are good. You know, just, the Lord has to keep his people in check, man. You know, the Lord has to admonish his people for their iniquities, man. And, you know, it angers the Lord to see our people straying away from the path of righteousness, the path of sincerity. You know, it's just horrible. All right. So I'll start from verse 3. It says, "And they bend their tongues like their bow for lies, but they are not valiant for the truth upon the earth. For they proceeded from evil to evil, and they know not me, saith the Lord." So that's the horrible habit, you know, that so many of our people have gone accustomed to, you know. And when you talk about IUIC, you just, you're sad, man. You know, it breaks your heart, you know, to see such a large congregation of our people being misled. And then you just have to, let the Lord sort it out, man. You know, that the Lord allow it, that, situation to have its course. So now the time of correction has to be introduced, you know, because our people are basically running, you know, and banging their heads against the wall, man, when they hold on to the falsehoods, you know, of vanity, man. You know, that's the issue, you know, and they keep on screaming, you know, you gotta keep the law, keep the law. But what is the use of not breaking down the scriptures pertaining to the law properly? You know, making a ridicule of the elements of faith. You know, the elements of faith in this ministry is paramount, man. You know, they make ridicule of the law by perverting the understanding of the law. You know, whether it comes to the new moon, the Shabbat, you know, it's just too much, man. It's too much. You have to point out. You know, it's as if you have to be, recording a lesson for over an hour based on the lies that are being told. You know, so it's up to the Lord, you know, to bring that spirit of correction, you know, heavy upon them, because when you protest against the lies by exposing it, and then you introduce the truth, you know, you basically you've done your part. But then it's up to the Lord to bring about the conclusion. You know, that's just what it is, man. Because in verse 4, Jeremiah 9:4 says, "Take ye heed every one of his neighbor, and trust ye not in any brother, for every brother will utterly supplant, and every neighbor will work with slanders. And that's one thing you have to remember in this ministry, man. When you have an organization like IUIC, man, coming against the words of the Lord of Mashiach Yahushua being taught by Great Millstone, you have to wonder, why is it so difficult to honor the true understanding of the gospel? What's so bad about the words of the Lord of Mashiach Yahushua that they have to come against the the pristine, understanding of the gospel, coming against the word of the Lord of Mashiach Yahushua? So it just shows you that there's something going on in the background, behind the scenes, that is not being addressed. And eventually the Lord will have to expose what it is, you know. So, it's in the Lord's hands, man. You have no control on what type of judgment, on what type of approach the Lord is going to apply, the Lord is going to employ to expose, what's really the problem with IUIC, man. What's really driving them to hold on to these lies against the gospel. All right. So you just have to be ready, to to hold on, man, to hold on to your seats. When the Lord, you know, start to bring forth that judgment upon them. So Isaiah chapter 50, 59, and let's go verse 3 and 4. What does it say? For your hands are defiled with bloodshed, and your fingers with iniquity. Your lips have spoken lies, your tongue hath murmured perverseness. And that's the problem, that the Lord sees among our people, man. The negative energy, is just causing our people to go astray, man. The energy of falsehood, the energy of deception is just not acceptable. It's at this time, we're getting closer and closer to the end of our journeys in this captivity, but then the lies are still being held on to. When the late, the late, what do you call it, man? The so-called, the interviewer was talking, with Nate over a decade ago about a time of Jacob's trouble. Why would Nate deny that and then wants to come around and admit it? Despite despite all the truth, we're trying to wiggle out of the understanding of that time, and why would he want to do that? Why would he want to lie against the scriptures? Why wouldn't he support, the prophecy? Jeremiah chapter 30 and 7, it tells you clearly, just look at it. Yeah, it tells you clearly. It tells you, alas, for that day is great, so that none is like it. It is even the time of Jacob's trouble, but he shall be delivered. Yeah? He shall be saved out of it. So you just have to wonder why, man. why deny such a simple, clear scripture? You know, whether it's the MOTB, it runs and runs and runs away from it, and now when it's happening, all of a sudden, he wants to gravitate towards it, but not wholeheartedly. Yeah, it just shows you, man. End of the day, man. They're getting cornered. The fox is getting cornered. And that's how it is, man. No matter how far, they try to run away from the truth. As we're getting closer to the end of preaching the gospel on the highways and byways. They have to deal with the prophecies coming to pass. They have to answer for it. They have to provide answers to their congregation, and they will have to take. They have to account for every idle word. That's something they have to look forward to doing. All that lying against the law. Oh, because it was an emergency. It's just make you wonder, man, what is wrong? What is wrong? What is wrong? But anyway, who knows, man? Who knows what former members of IUIC will be popping out of the woodwork to to expose them further. Who knows when Barack Shah is going to pop up? So it's just how it is, man. And at the end of the day, the Lord will have to shake things up. That's just what it is. All right. So let me get back to Isaiah 59. All right, let's see. Verse 3 and 4 says, "For your hands are defiled with blood, and your fingers with iniquity. Your lips have spoken lies, your tongue have muttered perverseness. None called for justice, nor any pleaded for truth. They trust in vanity and speak lies. They conceive mischief and bring forth iniquity." And that's the sad part. They're always conceiving mischief. If you're going to break down the scriptures, breaking down the way it's supposed to be brought out to the people. Don't read the scripture halfway and then you run over, the conclusion, run over the conclusion and ignore it and run to the lie real quick. You know, skipping over scriptures deliberately to mislead people. It's not a good thing. You know, they're basically denying the word of the Lord. They're denying the laws, statutes, and commandments of the Lord, the Mashiach Yahushai. And yeah, misleading the people comes with a cost. These are the flock, the sheep of the Lord, the Mashiach Yahushai. Okay, you cannot mislead the flock. Yeah, you cannot mislead the Lord's people and think the Lord is gonna be happy about that. The hireling has to work according to the master's requests. But then you have to ask yourself, man, is the hireling going to serve the master, according to the master's requests, or according to the saboteur's, request? So you have the camp of lies, and you have the camp of the truth. So it's just horrible, to live a life dedicated to lies and falsehoods, right? So we get a scripture from the book of Second Thessalonians, chapter 2, and I'm going to read from verse 8. It says, and then shall the wicked be revealed, whom the Lord shall consume with the spirit of his mouth, and shall destroy with the brightness of his coming. So if the Lord is going to be coming against, the empire of Esau, exposing exposing him, you know, what's not to be exposed about the falsehood of the the false teachers, misleading the people, because at the end of the day, man, the system of lies has to fall apart. The Lord is coming to bring judgment. So the scripture talks about rewarding every man according to his work. All right. So eventually, whatever is done in the dark has to be brought to the light. So verse 9 says, even him whose coming is after the working of Satan with all power and signs and lying wonders. All right. And with all deceivableness of unrighteousness in them that perish, because they received not the love of the truth, that they might be saved. So the truth is necessary for salvation. The more they reject the truth, the farther they are from being saved by the Lord. The basically fighting against their salvation. They're fighting against being adopted back by the Lord. Amashak Yahushai. They do not want to be adopted. They don't want to be part of the adoption. They want to be the rejects. You know, if you believe in the Lord Amashak Yahushai, why don't you just accept the the path that has been paved for you to walk through? The path has already been set. You know, walk walk through. That's about it. The straight gate, man. The straight gate has been prepared. So what's so impossible? It's not impossible to walk through the straight gate. You know, that's what a lot of our people will have to face sooner or later. You have to go through the straight gate. And that's the reason why this ministry requires honesty and humility. To make it through one stage after the other. The, Going through the straight gate is not a one-day experience. It's a lifetime. A lifetime until until the gate closes behind you. That's it. You know, yeah. There is no turning back. You've been confined to the path of straightness. So that's what we're looking forward to. All right. So verse 11 says, and for this cause the Mosiah Bashim Ashai Bashim Kakadesh shall send them strong delusion that they should believe a lie, that they all might be damned, who believed not the truth, but had pleasure in unrighteousness. So that's the judgment for our people, for disowning the truth. The truth is not just something you just ignore and think that there are no repercussions for it, that there's no recompense. There will be a recompense for ignoring the truth. Just like when you tell a child, do not touch the hot stove, man. The child don't want to listen. Nah, 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 nah. But once they touch that fire, that's it. Yeah, that's it. So you have to find out the hard way. Now they got to deal with all the pain and all the suffering and all the scars and all the, the chastisement. All right. So Again, another precept. I'm a little bit slow today. I just gotta get my spirits warmed up. So, the book of James, let's see, book of James, chapter 3, also addresses this type of situation that we have. Let's see, looking at about this idea, man. James 3 and 13. Who is a wise man and endued with knowledge among you? Let him show out of a good conversation his works with meekness and wisdom. But if ye have bitter envy and strife in your hearts, glory not and lie not against the truth. That's words of wisdom. That's a disciple of the Lord has to make known to us, man. That you cannot lie against the truth. Then verse 15 says, "This wisdom descended not from above, but is earthly, sensual, and devilish." So when you see a group of people practicing the devilish wisdom, that's witchcraft. That's what it is, witchcraft. So that's the issue. That's the issue that we have to remember. That rebellion is as the sin of witchcraft, man. Because that series on Amazon, The House of David, when the prophet Samuel had to chastise King Saul for not obeying the word of the Lord, you know, he had to be checked. So that's just what it is, man. If King Saul had to be admonished and judged, you know, who's going to be exempt? Who among the disobedience is going to be exempt? If the Lord is going to hold a king accountable, I mean, who else? You know, who else that's not following the word of the Lord? Will not be held accountable. So it's just some things I've been thinking about, man. That is really necessary, man. That we hold on to this truth of the gospel. You have to know exactly what lies are being told, and the truth. This truth, helps you to understand why people tell lies. What's the motive, for telling a lie? What do they want to gain out of it? So when the Lord begins to close the doors and they're running out of lies, what are they going to do? You know. So verse 14. No, let me see. Verse 15. This wisdom descended not from above, but is earthly, sensual, and devilish. All right. So it's worldly behavior, man. It's not. Has no place in this ministry, man, because it always leads to the satisfying of the flesh. So verse 16 says, "For where envy and strife is, there is confusion and every evil work." Yeah, so they just opening up themselves, man, to more problems. So yeah, we gotta get out of this habit, man, of accepting the lies being taught against the scriptures. All right. So we need the Lord, to make a move against these harbingers of lies. So verse 17 says, "But the wisdom that is from above is first pure, then peaceable, gentle, and easy you to be entreated, full of mercy and good fruits, without partiality and without hypocrisy. Okay, so this is what you're gonna get, man. You read verse 17. That's what you get for accepting the truth and holding on to it. And then verse 18 says, "And the fruit of righteousness is sown in peace of them that make peace." That's why Yahushua is called the Prince of Peace. You know, that's just what it is. We have to be peacemakers, just as the Lord Mashiach Yahushua. He's a peacemaker. He has to reconcile us back unto the Lord Yahweh. So we have to be in that same mindset. Okay, so another precept will be from the book of John, 1 John 2 and 21. It says, "I have not written unto you because you know not the truth, but because you know it, and that no lie is of the truth." It's that clear, man. You have to accept the truth, no matter what condition you find yourself, and then say, "Who is a liar but he that denied that Yahushua is the Hamashiach?" All right? He is Antichrist that denied the Father and the Son. So what's going on, man? What's going on with IUIC? Is this the camp of the Antichrist? That's a situation. They found themselves in. And you cannot be silent about that, because the Most High didn't give you instructions to be silent about the preaching of this gospel. You have to make known the concerns of the Lord unto the people. His people, the Israelites. All right, that's what we really have to endure. You have to endure the consistency of the Lord's wisdom. All right. Yeah, you cannot water down the wisdom of the Lord and appease the fleshly habits, the devilish habits of our people. It's not advisable. We behave in such a way. So, final precept, it's going to be from the book of Isaiah again, Isaiah chapter 30, verse 1. And what does it say? It says, "Woe to the rebellious children, saith the Lord Yahweh, by Hashem Yahshai, by Hashem Kakadash, that taketh counsel, but not of me." That's a problem. They're taking counsel from another source, and that's a violation of the first commandment. Okay? And that cover with a covering, but not of my spirit, that they may add sin to sin. Alright, so, yep. So now, that's the law, the violation of the first commandment. Yeah, so, we need help. We need help really, really, really bad. When you're doing this work, you don't want to see your own people fall. But say, you can't save everybody. That's what the Lord Hamashiach Yahushua had to make clear. You can't save everybody. He already made it clear in the parable of the sower. You have to understand. All you can do is just sow the seed. Sow the seed, sow the seed, sow the seed. Those that get it, we get it. That's about it. So, Habaratza, you've been edified, and our frustration is not. It's not permanent. We just have to learn to deal with it, man. Because Only the Lord Amashaki Awashai can fix this mess that our people keep pushing themselves back into, man. Can be returning as dogs onto the vomit. It doesn't really look good. So yeah, you just gotta keep on praying, man. Those that will be delivered in this last days. Shalom.